Hi, I am Lindsay Juergens, and this is Leaders Like Us. Today we have the one and only Jack Sheard. Thank you for joining us, Jack.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I've heard about this series. I've been waiting for, maybe a phone call that I was a big enough deal to be talked to. This is like my celebrity moment. This is exciting.
Well, we penciled you in, so I'm just so happy we could make it work. Quick thanks also to 5 Points Bank for allowing us to film here, and then also to JBS for being our series sponsor of Leaders Like Us. So, we got you. You're here. I really am so grateful that you're here. I have admired everything that you have been involved in for quite some time, so why don't we just jump right in? You are someone who tends to care about and get involved in different areas within the community. You care about Grand Island. What's kept you and your wife and your life here? I know you work in Hastings now for Idea Bank as the marketing strategist, but can you just talk about why this community is important to you?
So, to me, when I got here in 2005, people had said things like, "Why would you move to Grand Island?" And why Grand Island? There's gangs and there's drugs and the Mexicans. So many times I've heard that, the Mexicans, the immigrants, and we looked at it as a location initially. That's what it was about for us. My parents lived in Omaha. My wife's parents lived in the Sand Hills, and this was right smack in the middle. So even if it was just temporary to get back to Nebraska, it was there. I've lived here, 17 years almost. I don't have run-ins with the Mexicans. I've never been approached for drugs. The gangs aren't a thing that I run into. Instead, what I run into are people who are nice.
Yeah.
People who are, they care about kids. They care about growth, and maybe I'm just selective in who I spend my time with, but it's people who are nice, they're genuine, the people that I'm around. I wish we could get rid of the need for the people that have to help other people, or these agencies and all these volunteer opportunities. I wish we could erase that need, but we can't. And what I love about Grand Island is in the 17 years I've been here, someone's there to pick up the pieces that need to be picked up and take on the roles. I think I took it a little selfishly when my kids were younger, really young when we moved here. That those things, I took it for granted that those things were going to happen. And it didn't take very long before I realized, no, people do those things, and it takes people. And as I got to know those people, I realized that's something that needs to be done, and there's an opportunity for me to actually do that here. And as you get attached to a community, you get involved with it, I realized that it's easy to fall in love.
Yeah.
And we've fallen in love with Grand Island.
That makes total sense. I can really relate to that. This wasn't supposed to be a long-term situation for me, and very much turned out to be a long-term situation. So it's funny how that creeps up on you, and you're like, oh, I have roots here now. I'm really, really settled, and I love it. And you're so right. I think one thing really special about where we live is that there are so many people who care. And to your point, it may be the circles that we're running in, those that are invested and feel like they have a level of accountability to our community, but they very much exist. And I think that they're kind of like the fuel in the tank a lot of times to keep things moving.
And I find that it's something that unites people. I really believe that there are so many forces in the world today, and whether it be what we associate with in the virtual world, in social media, or the media we may choose to follow, there's so many things that get political or get even non-political type things. It's, I'm a Colts fan, and my neighbor is a Bears fan, and if we ever played, we'd hate each other, right? But we take that same mentality. The world just tries to put us into boxes that show our differences. And, I always say if there's a Venn diagram of, this is what I believe and what you believe, or they believe, right? That they would have us believe that there's no crossover.
Right.
When in reality, even people that we disagree with on most everything, that Venn diagram is about like that.
Right,
It's that little sliver that we disagree on that seems to get all the attention.
for sure.
And what I found in Grand Island, and maybe it's because I've always been in a role where I have to not be a pacifist, but I have to find common ground. I find in Grand Island you can find common ground. That people that I'm politically absolutely different from, I can sit down and have conversations with them and have true discussions and find things where we can have conversations. But I can also sit with those same people and solve problems. I can solve problems with them to help our community. And I guess there's people that get a bad rap because they are very vocally political in a way, and that annoys me. But I can sit down with that same person, and if they're the right person to have a conversation about to solve a problem in our community, most of them can do that.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's the circles we run in, because I think, like you, I appreciate leaders who are vulnerable. I appreciate leaders who are willing to sit at the table and acknowledge that they don't know everything. In my younger days, I didn't sit at that table that way.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you shared a story before we started filming about how you sort of manually had to get away from some of that arrogance. Would you mind sharing that?
So I don't know if this is what you meant, but yes.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I saw the movie Top Gun,
yeah.
and I truly believe I fell in love with the idea of being the best.
Yeah.
And in a way that it was cool and it was like macho to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at a detriment of whoever was between me and number one. So a lot of times, I was an artist and a designer at a newspaper, and if it meant I wasn't the featured designer, then it was because that person was in my way, not because they did something good. And my view of the world was, get out of my way, I'm number one. And it was never, we are the best. Look at what you brought to the table to make us better. It was, look at what I did.
Yeah.
I'm the best, and now we're the best because of me.
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. and it's amazing that doesn't make you a very popular person. Super successful, the best at what you do doesn't make you also liked.
Right, it's crazy.
And it's amazing how short-lived any successes you can have are when you're the one doing the work, taking the credit.
Yeah.
I have a hero complex. I'm the only one who can possibly solve this problem, and if we don't do it my way, then it's the wrong way.
Right.
It didn't take long in my career to realize that the way I was behaving was not productive. And I had a leader tell me on my last day at my first real job, when you go to your next job, my advice for you is to go around and see how you can help people be successful, because you're very talented and your talents can go very far if you're using them to help people.
Yeah.
That's some great advice. It was great advice. And the next job went much better as far as just being able to work with people and build people up. I moved from being a production person to being a leader, and it was really part of that. So I've spent internally the last many years, probably close to 20 years now, trying to figure out how do I bottle up the self-confidence in a positive way and use it and really hide away the arrogance.
Yeah.
And every time my wife and I, we stumbled onto Top Gun the other night, and again, I'm walking around the house thinking, I'm the best.
They made this movie about me.
Yeah, that's me playing volleyball, and we just every time I play volleyball, I'm listening to Kenny Loggins, and it's like, I'm awesome. I will say, one of the things that helped me take a better look at how I view my community and what my role in the community is, and it's humbled me quite a bit. There were two things that really led to me wanting to take a bigger role in my community. Well, three. One was a high school friend and I always competed against each other at everything. And he said his goal was to one day be the ruler of the world. And I said, you can be number two. And it is funny, right?
Yeah.
But that's the competitive nature, and I still remember that from when we were 13.
That's funny.
You know, so it's that drive to be, I'm going to be this because of that. My reasons changed for wanting to be that, to do more. I mentioned to you guys beforehand that the 35 under 35, which, are we allowed to acknowledge the person behind the camera?
Oh, you
Can we
mean
break
Angelica Morrow?
Of 5 Points Bank and many community organizations, one of the distinguished 35 under 35.
Yes.
So, the funny story about 35 under 35, I applied the very first year.
Yeah.
One of my great former bosses, Don Smith, said, Jack, make sure you fill out this application. All right, I can do that. And I filled it out, and one of my employees at the time also filled it out, and he volunteered at the Grand and at Stewart, and I thought, well, that's nice, but they're looking for management type.
Right.
This is 35 under 35, right? These are people who are leaders.
Yeah. I don't carry the title.
Yeah. You got to be somebody, and I filled it out with all the, I'm a leader and I'm a manager, and I'm under 35, and I did not get the 35 under 35, but my employee did. Son of a gun. Maybe there's more to doing things than work. Maybe you have to be a community advocate.
Right.
So I turned to George Ayu, he'd sit next to me at work, and I said, man, I just don't do anything. And he said, well, you're a youth baseball coach, that's something, and you are in the PTA. I said, yeah, but those are small potatoes. So I just started amassing every possible thing I could be a part of. I was on the downtown board, I was on JA, I was on, I think the list got to be about 7 or 8 different things that I was just involved in. And I didn't feel like I was really doing a lot. I was doing a little here and there and not very good with any of them.
Sure.
And that's probably being a little harsh.
But it's how you felt.
It's how I felt.
Yeah.
I went through Leadership Tomorrow, and one of the first things, I think it was Scott Zana said, was learn to say no. Be really good at what you want to be involved with.
Yeah.
Let it be more passion than just ability.
Yep.
And you'll find that you do better. And I've found that the things that I'm passionate about, that I get involved with, I do much better with. And
Definitely.
it's saying yes has become a lot harder and more intentional than it was before.
Yeah.
But I feel like if someone's getting a Jack Sheard, that you so eloquently put earlier, on their team, the one and only,
right?
that they're getting the best Jack Sheard they
Sure.
can get, and I can help build that team.
Well, it's a crummy feeling when you've over-yesed. That's what I call it. When you've over-yesed and this is how I'm hearing you, and you're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things, but you've not bitten in. You're not committed to any 1 or 2, maybe 3 things. Overcommitting can make you not only look kind of bad because you're not able to fully bite in, but it definitely makes you feel like, gosh, I'm not loving it. I'm not passionate about it. I'm just checking the boxes. And I say this as someone who over yeses, but I've tried to intentionally step back from that and know, no, I really do want to love the things that I'm doing and give all that I can give to those. And also, you still have a family and you still have your work and you have these things that need you. So over-yesing can be bad for your personal life if you are not careful.
Very much so. And if there's not buy-in from your family, then it takes the joy out of it.
Yeah.
To where it's an obligation to do some of these things rather than it's another task. And if you're not bringing passion to what you're doing, then it's not going to be successful. I do, mention that 13-year-old me said I'm going to be the rule of the world, and the 35 under 35 got me to think about being more intentional about, doing more for my community. In my previous community I lived in, I was an editor of sorts on the copy desk in the newspaper there as well. I was the head of the art department. And we started a Saturday paper. It was a 6-day paper. We started a Saturday. And it became a pet project for one of the reporter, manager, editor level guys. He and I were both artistic. He was a photographer and a storyteller, and I was a designer and a storyteller. So we kind of took on some things. And one of the stories he took on was in one of the area communities in our area of northern Iowa. There was a guy that was known as the Volunteer, and we kept hearing these stories about it. Well, Dennis, the guy I worked with, kept hearing these stories. So he said, "Well, I'm going to do a story on this guy." And he went and met with this guy and shot photos of him, and he, I'm telling you a lot of details. What matters is he asked the guy, "So why do you volunteer so much?"
Yeah.
And what he said, and what Dennis brought back to me, changed my life. He said, "I was in the war, and while I was there, my buddy here and my buddy here didn't come back. I did.
Right.
And it is my obligation to not volunteer and do things for my community for me, but I've got him and I've got him." And I thought that was so powerful.
It is.
And I for a number of reasons. One, that's how selfless the generation was. They talk about the greatest generation. They're not lying. My generation didn't have that. We just don't. Luckily, we didn't have to show that, and we certainly don't exemplify that on a day-to-day basis. But then I thought, I have done, not only do I not volunteer, I spend my time doing my things. I didn't ever do anything so great as to even volunteer in my service to my country in any way, right? So that's a pretty grand gesture that I didn't do. I'm reaping the benefits of it. Now, I wasn't always the super successful businessman that I am now. I was a journalist, an up-and-coming journalist, with a young family. So we were not living in excess.
Sure.
We were in the, I don't know, I want to shatter the glass of people, but journalists don't make any money.
That's the rumor.
It's not a rumor, that is a fact. So we were, we weren't living it up, but we were, we were getting by, I guess.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a lot of time. And at one time, my service was the fact that between my wife and I, we had literally 6 jobs between the two of us. When we got to a point where we didn't have to do that, when we moved to Grand Island and I was getting a little bit better of a career going, I remembered what that guy said. That I owe it to him and to him. Well, I owe it to all 3 of them. And that really started to drive me in wanting to do more. That caused me to say yes a lot. And it was a great thing to prompt me to do more, but I had to get to a point where I could say no to do more. The things that I'm involved with that I actually really truly care about, that I want to see make an impact, I do more good for them by far than being a part of any organization that can use my talents.
Sure.
When I was at Leadership Tomorrow, on their Leadership Tomorrow board, I was so passionate. And it can kind of come down to Scott Zana saying, learn to say no, and some of the other leaders I learned from, that I felt like we can make a bigger impact with better leaders and younger leaders feeling like I can fill those roles.
Yeah.
This community needs a Bill Marshall.
Well, and to that point, we have to fill the vacancies that are inevitable. And so if our younger people, if we haven't empowered our next up-and-comers, then what are we doing?
Right.
That's crazy. Nothing is sustainable if you are not preparing the next seat filler, right?
And it's crazy because I think we look at some of the folks that were in those roles. I always admired Lynn Cronk. She was a school board member. She was very active in the community and getting things done. Denzel Rasmussen is probably, I look at him as, he is the guy that if I could just be a little bit more like Denzel every day than I was yesterday, I'm never going to reach Denzel level because I don't think Denzel ever had any ounce of ego in him, and I'm 50% Maverick, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of Maverick.
There's a lot of Maverick in
right.
him. But if I could just try to be a little bit more like him and find ways to support other people along the way, there's not a lot of Denzel Rasmussen left in anywhere. Ken Gannott was the biggest cheerleader of Grand Island. We talk about Bill Marshall here.
Sure.
And the things that he did and his attitude of getting things done for our community. I think if more leaders just say, how do I fit in with what I care about, and then give it my all to that,
Yeah.
I think we'll find more of those folks. And again, coming back full circle to our Venn diagram, there's a lot in that middle coverage of that Venn diagram of what we want, what we believe, and what we hope to see for our kids, for our community, for Grand Island, for our world. And when we work together on the things that we're passionate about to accomplish what needs to get done, if we work on that in that area, a lot gets done.
Yeah.
And we all seem to be a little bit happier.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us today. I personally think that you're a huge asset to the community, but I don't think it's just about what I think. I think the evidence is there. So truly, thank you for caring about where we live and what we do and what we can do to make ourselves better.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing stories. I think storytelling is the greatest way to inspire people. And thank you for sharing people's stories. You've had so many awesome leaders on here, and I think you're doing the right thing.
We also want to thank 5 Points Bank for allowing us to film on their site, as well as JBS. They are our series sponsor, and we greatly appreciate that. And that is a wrap. Thank you for watching Leaders Like Us.